Welcome back to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. For decades, the Arctic sat like an idling engine, cold, quiet, and ignored. But as ice retreats and global demand for energy, minerals, and new transport corridors surges, that frozen region has roared back to life. In the past 10 years alone, the Arctic has transformed into a high-stakes arena shaping defense policy, supply chains, and even the future of electric vehicles. Under Donald Trump's second term, tensions have accelerated fast, with Greenland emerging as the geopolitical crankshaft holding it all together. Now, Canada has made a subtle but strategic move that's shifting the balance of power without firing a single shot. Here are the developments, the strategies, and the consequences you need to understand. Canada's silent Arctic maneuver, a precision power play. Canada's decision to open its first-ever consulate in Nuuk, Greenland, may look understated, but geopolitically, it's a precision-engineered move. This wasn't a loud announcement or a symbolic flag-planting exercise. It was a calculated insertion into the one Arctic territory Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed the U.S. must control one way or the other. In mechanical terms, Ottawa didn't floor the throttle. It adjusted torque exactly where it mattered. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand framed the move as a major expansion of Canada's Arctic presence, signaling a shift from sovereignty talk to real-world engagement. For the first time, a senior Canadian minister traveled to Greenland with the express purpose of establishing permanent diplomatic infrastructure. That sends a message of long-term commitment, not opportunistic interest. Greenlandic lawmakers noticed immediately. One MP summed it up with a single word: finally. That reaction exposed years of frustration, particularly among Inuit communities whose cultural and economic ties span Canada, Greenland, and Alaska. The consulate closes a long-standing gap between shared heritage and actual governance, something Washington's approach has struggled to achieve. But this wasn't just a diplomatic win for Canada. It triggered something deeper inside Greenland itself. Greenland recalibrates, escaping Europe, courting North America. Greenland's response wasn't just diplomatic courtesy, it was a strategic recalibration. Officials have openly discussed deeper economic integration with North America, especially through Canada's trade and logistics networks. For years, Greenland sat on the sidelines as NAFTA and later USMCA reshaped continental supply chains. It supplied raw materials indirectly, but lacked a direct on-ramp into North American industry. Canada's presence in Nuuk changes that dynamic. Instead of routing trade exclusively through Europe, Greenland now has a closer, more efficient gateway into North American markets. That matters because Greenland sits atop significant reserves of rare earth elements, critical minerals, and energy resources. Materials that function like the pistons inside modern EV motors, wind turbines, and battery systems. In today's automotive world, securing magnet metals and battery inputs isn't optional, it's survival. Greenland's geology makes it strategically valuable, but its leaders are cautious. They want partnerships, not ownership claims. Canada's approach, grounded in collaboration, indigenous ties, and shared Arctic stewardship, aligns with that goal far better than acquisition rhetoric. Greenland isn't picking sides impulsively. It's choosing control, flexibility, and respect. And this quiet economic shift didn't go unnoticed, especially in Washington. Before we go any further, take a second to like the video and subscribe to Piston Pundit. It helps us keep bringing you clear, no-nonsense breakdowns on how global moves shape the automotive world. All right, let's shift gears and move into the next chapter. Trump's Greenland obsession. Allies lose trust. Donald Trump's obsession with Greenland began years ago, but under Trump 2.0, the tone has shifted from eccentric to destabilizing. Public declarations that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, combined with refusals to rule out force, have shaken trust among allies. What once sounded like political bluster is now treated as a real policy risk. Denmark's response underscores how serious this has become. Danish intelligence agencies have taken the extraordinary step of listing the United States as a potential threat in formal security assessments, citing economic pressure, technological leverage, and implied coercion, even against allies. That's like seeing warning lights illuminate on a dashboard you never expected to fail. Copenhagen has reportedly established overnight monitoring teams inside its foreign ministry to track Trump's statements in real time, anticipating sudden policy shifts. More troubling are allegations that individuals linked to Trump attempted influence operations within Greenland, prompting diplomatic protests and warnings about NATO unity. Greenland itself remains engaged with Washington, hosting U.S. military assets and regular talks, but the relationship has shifted into risk management mode. That credibility gap created space for Canada to step in, not loudly but effectively, tightening bolts while others revved engines. And as trust in Washington frayed, Europe began drawing its own red lines. Europe pushes back. Arctic alliances begin shifting. Canada's move into Greenland landed amid a broader European counterpush to U.S. pressure, and France has been especially vocal. High-level visits by President Emmanuel Macron and Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot sent a clear signal. Greenland isn't a commodity to be acquired. European leaders framed Washington's posture as misaligned with alliance norms, emphasizing cooperation over coercion. Behind the rhetoric, the real torque comes from economics. Canada and Denmark are deepening ties in clean energy, offshore wind, hydrogen, and low-carbon industry. Canadian aluminum, smelted with hydroelectric power, has become increasingly attractive as Europe's carbon border measures kick in, penalizing emissions-heavy materials. Trade between Canada and Denmark now reflects strategic direction rather than raw volume, prioritizing resilient supply chains and Arctic infrastructure. While U.S. policy leans on tariffs and pressure, Canada and Europe are building durable capacity together, quietly aligning components that will power the next phase of Arctic influence. And this coordinated investment strategy points to a much bigger shift in how Arctic power now works. The Arctic's new reality: power through investment. The deeper takeaway from Greenland's response and Europe's posture is a redefinition of Arctic power. Influence now comes from consistent presence, patient capital, and trust, less from megaphones or threats. Canada's industrial strategy reinforces that shift. Federal energy investment has surged, anchoring nuclear expansion, clean power, and domestic manufacturing as pillars of national security. Projects like the Darlington nuclear cluster are set to generate billions in revenue and tens of thousands of skilled jobs. Ironically, tariff-heavy strategies intended to pull investment inward have often raised costs and disrupted supply chains. Canada's model does the opposite, building reactors, logistics, and alliances. As warming seas open Arctic routes that could cut global transit times dramatically, the stakes rise fast. China and Russia are already coordinating. In that environment, credibility functions like a well-balanced powertrain, smooth, efficient, and hard to displace. Canada recognized this early. Greenland noticed, Europe responded, and U.S. influence is slipping because it failed to recalibrate. Verdict: Washington missed the Arctic power shift. Canada's Greenland consulate is more than a diplomatic milestone. It's a blueprint for how power works in the modern Arctic. Influence isn't seized through bravado. It's earned through reliability, respect, and long-term investment. While Washington leaned into pressure and unpredictability, Canada focused on alignment, integrating energy policy, trade, and indigenous partnerships into a coherent strategy. The result is a steady shift in Arctic gravity, Greenland diversifying its future, Europe closing ranks, and Canada emerging as a serious Arctic actor by design, not force. For the United States, this should be a calibration moment. In a region where supply chains, shipping lanes, and critical minerals are the pistons driving the global economy, showing up matters more than posturing. Now, over to you. Should Arctic strategy prioritize investment over military leverage? How critical will Greenland's minerals be to EV and battery supply chains? Can the U.S. rebuild trust, or has that window closed? Share your thoughts below. Your insights drive this channel forward. Before we wrap, don't forget to subscribe to Piston Pundit so you're notified about upcoming vehicle updates and deep dive breakdowns. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.